next in line is Lisanne. I would like to say, Lisanne, are you here? Do you hear me?
I am. Hey, Koen.
Yes. It's my very own colleague, Lisanne, lead data strategy at DEPT. Lisanne will talk us through the cookieless world and the privacy-driven reality that we are facing now, and especially in the coming years, in the world of e-commerce. And maybe to kick it off, Lisanne, first question to you. Why should people stay at this stage? What is the relevance of the cookieless world for e-com managers, product owners, and CMOs that are listening in this talk?
Oh, good question. I would say that the phasing out of cookies is the one thing that hits us all, no matter your industry, but especially in the e-commerce branch. You're no longer able to measure the purchases properly, to attribute your marketing efforts properly. And it's really easy to ignore because you don't really see this happening. There's no bug appearing, your website will keep on working, but it does have major impact. So I hope I persuaded you all to keep listening.
It sounds very scary, the world without cookies. I cannot measure anymore. I cannot do attribution anymore. I don't see my purchases anymore. Please, Lisanne, talk us through your story. Take over the screen and we are listening. The floor is yours.
Perfect. I will share my screen with you guys. Here we are. All right. The new cookieless and privacy-driven reality and how to handle your data. That's what we'll be talking about. And Koen said it already. It sounds scary, but it's not. It's actually I think for the better. In the upcoming 15 minutes, I will tell you all about why I believe so. So you all probably have heard about cookies being phased out, or as we like to say, the death of the cookie, to make it indeed sound a bit exciting and also a bit scary. And it's a threat, right? We've been talking about this for years. Like I said just now, they are disappearing. It's very easy to ignore, but it does have a major impact. But like I said, it is for the better. And I don't think it's only a threat. I think it's also an opportunity. Because it really changes the way we used to do marketing. We used to do maybe optimization or personalization. And it really requires us to be far more personal with our customers and potential customers. To explain you why that's the case and why I believe so, I have 3 topics for you today. A new reality, a little bit of background, short recap if you've missed all about this cookie topic, data management, how to handle indeed your data, and some final thoughts. Let's dive into the new reality. So I think the last couple of years, we're always talking about the cookies that are going to disappear. But I really want to make super clear that they have already disappeared. Of course, Chrome, the browser of Google, has indeed postponed the depletion with another year. However, that's one of the browsers that your visitors are using to visit your e-commerce webshop. This graph that you see here is an example of one of our e-commerce clients, and you see that over half of the traffic is coming from a Safari browser. In Safari, you are no longer able to store those cookies. So that means that for already over half of your traffic, most likely, you're not able to properly measure those conversions, so purchases, attributed to your right marketing channel, to do personalization, to do A/B testing. The list goes on. So this has already nowadays, today, a massive impact. So they're not going to disappear. They have already done so. Now, that requires us to take a fundamental different approach to our marketing efforts and to optimizing your performance online. How does that look like? First of all, the upper funnel, your marketing channels offside of your e-commerce platform, you reaching out to new prospects. We were used to focus really on one specific user, one cookie ID, if you will, based on those cookies. Now, that's no longer the case. So we can't simply send out our ads, but have to think about the context where we want to reach them. For example, if you're selling sports equipment, you may want to look for a sport pattern from a news outlet. Or if you're selling clothes or maybe beauty products, you want to look for blogs or articles that are about that topic and reach your customer audiences there. Now, looking at your e-commerce platform, one thing that is super important to understand is that for every bit of data collection that we'll do, you need consent from your user. And the way you get consent is by offering valuable content. So thinking about how you can persuade your users to give that consent and how you can actually add value. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And lastly, about performance and loyalty. So really retargeting your users, for example, with products that they've recently viewed, or sending out emails for new sales that you have coming up. You will notice that your volumes of those audiences will go down. You won't be able to target everyone simply because people can decline that consent. And in order to be as effective and to get the same results, you will find yourself needing to increase the relevancy of your campaigns. Increase it in a way that it fits to the customer, maybe to the products that they've seen or the product category that they've been looking at, but it also fits their customer journey. Perhaps you're selling that type of product that needs a little bit of a longer thinking period, a longer customer journey. So you want to add or adapt your message to that phase in the customer journey. So that's it in general, how you want to do that from a marketing perspective. Now, let's look at what that means for data specifically. And in order to explain that, I will run you through 4 steps: consent, identity, audiences, and campaign. And I'll elaborate a bit on how data is affected in each of these phases. So starting with consent. Oh, there we are. You need consent. That can either happen on a cookie bar. I think we all know this, those annoying things that pop up every time you enter a website. It is, however, super important to do this well, because only when people give you the consent, you can place or store that cookie. You can still use it to some extent, having the right short-term fixes. And by, again, offering your users a choice, so asking them not only do you want cookies, yes or no, but maybe you want to get some personalization, but not our marketing efforts. Or maybe you are willing to place analytical cookies, but not other cookies. And allowing people to add their preferences, you will most likely find yourself creating larger audiences. Then a marketing opt-in. This is something that happens when a visitor is filling out a form or a subscription on your website. Think about a marketing newsletter, but also if your products are out of stock, perhaps you're sending out emails when those products are getting back to you. Make sure that at this, when asking for these details, also again, ask for the right marketing opt-in. So you can actually use the data to personalize again or to market those audiences. And last but not least, a login. This is also something that we see far more often. Basically creating an account, leaving behind your email address to maybe read or enter your website, and allowing you to, again, get to know people based on their email address. Now, this all sounds very cool for us being businesses and e-commerce businesses, but why, as a customer, would you leave your details behind? Why would you identify yourself? And that is a question that we really need to ask ourselves and really need to answer properly. So think about it. What's in it for them? Why should they leave their details behind on your website? And what value are you offering them? What I very much like about this trend or development is that it really allows us to build also a relationship with our customers. For example, once you've created a login or an account in an e-commerce environment, saving up loyalty points, or getting free shipment, early access to a sale, or also one of my personal favorites, just an email on your birthday. Just a way to really get close and build a relationship with your clients and your customers. Another example that I personally ran across myself I will be moving houses in the near future. And I was looking at dressers, and I found a website which was really cool. I could customize the whole dresser, the mirror, the color, the number of doors, you name it. And at one point I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I'm not ready to buy it, but I think it's pretty nice. And the only option I basically had was either to buy it or just to leave. And how nice would it have been if I could leave my email address behind, maybe even send it to my partner, and them also having my details, being able to identify me, and maybe send a notification to me when it's in sale, or just a reminder for me to take a look back at this dresser. Moving on from consent to identity, because getting consent is step one, but then we need to really manage those identities also from a data point of view. Now, what do I mean with that? It used to be the case, of course, that we would just recognize people based on their cookie. Nowadays, you have a lot of touch points. You have your e-commerce platform, maybe you have a specific app, you may have your brick and mortar physical stores, and other media, like social media that you're advertising on. You want to be able to connect that user across those touch points and be able to recognize them. The way you do that is by collecting those data points and merging them in one central database. We usually call this a customer data platform, for example. And what you do there is structure all of that data. That's of course looking a bit different as it came from different touch points. Structure it in a coherent data set. And also, and this sounds maybe a bit weird, but stitch it combined on different keys. So what you do is take every unique identifier you have from your customer and build it into one unique ID, stitch it, so to say, in one unique ID. So you can actually recognize that user also when they come back to you. The way you do this, and I won't bore you with the exact technical details, is super important because it either allows you to look back in history or not. So it really pays off to think about how you build this up. Then this is all about you kind of owning your data and creating those data pipelines. And of course, Google also helped us out with a couple of initiatives to manage this. One of them is Google Analytics 4. You have enhanced conversions, being able to add some data, even though people may not have accepted your cookie banner. We have things like consent mode, allowing you to easily manage whether you're placing cookies or not, and things like server-side tagging. I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but if you have any questions, then please feel free to let me know afterwards. Then moving on to audience management. Like I said in the beginning, if volumes go down, your relevancy must go up. So you want to be able to really personalize the message you're bringing across. Because after all, we got consent from our users now. We identified who they were and where they've interacted with us previously. So now it's up to us as marketeers or e-com managers to make sure that we really bring our A game. How can you do that? First of all, by looking at measured behavior. For example, the interactions that someone had with your e-commerce store. Where were they in the funnel? Did they already visit the cart? Maybe did they drop off during the checkout and they're really easily persuaded to come back? Also things like, were they logged in, or did they already purchase something with you previously, or maybe even purchase something offline? And lastly, of course, you want to adapt to the products they've been looking at, or the type of content they were interested in. That's all looking back a bit, looking at previous and measured behavior. Nowadays, of course, you can also use data to predict behavior. So kind of look at expected behavior. For example, the segmentation. So based on behavior or browsing history, make a prediction about what kind of segment you're most likely in. Are you going to be a loyal customer? Are you maybe focused on family shopping? Or are you maybe someone who's very likely to return every order you ever made, only costing you money? But also other things like interests in a specific product. We all know the product recommenders, or other things like user intent. For example, are you going to buy, or when are you going to buy? Or are you going to churn, for example? So you can predict all of those that expected behavior and adapt to it. And again, make sure that you're relevant in your marketing channels and on your e-commerce platform. How could that look like? Again, if you have the right consent, you can bring all of that data together in your identity management. And then start, for example, predicting what kind of segment someone is. Are you maybe a millennial that is mainly looking at a lot of products in your web shop, but doesn't really add anything to the cart? Are you returning a lot of your orders? Maybe returning it even in one of your physical stores? Or are you a very loyal customer that purchases quite often and also for a high average order value? And you would really want to reward those people also maybe with a specific coupon code or special access to a sale, or a family member that not only needs to purchase for his or herself, but also needs to look at baby clothes or children's footwear, for example. Then the last bit where we really have to start thinking about data is campaign management. Again, looking back, we've consent, we've identified who we are dealing with, and we're also start predicting behavior. Now, the proof of the pudding is really in the eating. Can you make this happen in your campaigns? So make sure that you link your data platform to the specific ads channels or your data platform to your website. We just saw Jonathan and Tim explain you all about how that could look like from a technical perspective. And if you do so, really make sure to start thinking about who is going to use this in your organization. Is it the marketeer that may not be as well equipped to work on a very technical environment? Or do you maybe have a lot of data engineers sitting around that can help you do that? And make sure that you make a choice based on those requirements, really, so you're sure to use it. And then may not be the really a data topic, but I noticed that it's sometimes really underestimated. But as you have different personas or different phases in your customer journey, you want to market based on that. You also need to diversify your creatives. I mean, how are you going to create those very relevant experiences? So make sure you have content matching the audience segments. Make sure you meta tag that, so you can also automate, of course, the connection of a specific segment and the content that they're going to look at. And basically what happens there is that we are far more going back to this very classic user-centralized approach. And again, that's what I kind of like about this whole development. Okay, we had 4 topics: consent, identity, audience, and campaign. I can imagine it's quite a bit of information. So what do you need to remember? And more specifically, what should you be doing tomorrow? First of all, in terms of consent, make sure you're compliant. So have an audit done on your compliance. Also make sure that you start thinking about a content or loyalty strategy to really persuade users to identify themselves and make themselves known. Once they do that, you want to make sure that you can really use that data. So think about implementing the privacy sandbox from Google, or make sure you start working on a CDP roadmap. So you can actually combine that data somewhere centrally. In terms of audience management, start thinking about data use cases. What kind of segments are relevant to you? Maybe you really want to focus on the loyal part of your customer base, or maybe you have a lot of returns and you would love to solve that issue. So think about specific use cases that work for your specific e-commerce shop, and make sure to exchange those audiences. And last but not least, start thinking about how to apply that in your campaigns also with the right content, because just having a group of people or just having some data available doesn't really bring you anywhere. You need to make a strategy, start working with it, test it, measure if it worked, and start iterating to move to better results. Then I will leave you with some final thoughts. And that is, so far you've seen a lot of photos in my presentation of cookies and baking, and that was, of course, done on purpose. But I will need to find myself some new photos. I can remove everything I had from cookies and bakeries, and I need to start looking for photos of gardens, because from a very open environment where we used to use cookies and we could basically follow everyone everywhere, which is also kind of weird. We are now looking at a industry that is made out of walled gardens, if you will. So basically what that means is that because of developments in law, because of developments in tech, data will be more and more protected. So you will have to work on collecting so-called first-party data, right? Because of those newsletter subscriptions, because of people logging in. And next to your own walled garden of first-party data, you can also, of course, look to the more public gardens, so to say, from Google, Meta, or Amazon. Or, for example, here in the Netherlands, you have the publisher network from DPG. And they are connected enough and have such a large user base that you can make basically use of their first-party walled garden, so to say. So let me leave you with the following. Oh, there we go. Stop baking and start gardening. Thank you. And are there maybe any questions?
Thank you so much, Lisanne, and a great advice at the end of your presentation. I will start doing so. Do I summarize it correctly that running an e-commerce business can be compared with generating a very nice garden where you want to be part of, and that you have to create a reason why you want to be in that garden, and that you give something private, personal away in exchange for a nice position in this pretty garden? Is that what you mean with the final slide?
Yeah, exactly. That is, I never thought of it that way, but that's actually a really nice comparison. You need to make sure that you have the best, I don't know, flowers and plants that people want to look at and want to be part of. Indeed, to have them give you consent, so they actually see that value. Yeah. Nice.
Then I will ask you about that one final question before we round up this Commerce Day. I am convinced, I think people in this room listening to this topic are convinced. What if your manager or your the other people that make decisions regarding your budget when you run e-commerce, what if they are not convinced? How should you convince them about the relevance of this topic and building a roadmap and a backlog to prepare for the cookieless world? If you're not doing it yet, how do you convince your colleagues about it?
What I would do is ask your web analyst, or maybe do it yourself, is open up Google Analytics and make an overview of the shares of different browsers. I mean, what else is more compelling than actually showing your manager that, I don't know, maybe 60% of your traffic you're no longer able to identify or to properly attribute conversions for. So I think that bit of data and also understanding then the consequences makes it a bit more tangible, because I can imagine it's quite fake and also a bit technical. So why would you care? But I think once it becomes so tangible, that should really help.
Cool. Dive into analytics, ask your web analyst to do so, and present that in the your next meeting. That's what you say. Cool. I hope this advice will help the people who are listening to this topic. Lisanne, thank you very much. I really love the presentation, and I hope to see you next time at the office again.
Cool. Thanks, Koen.
For all the others, it has been a great day. We had a lot of experts on commerce. Thanks again for all the guests. We had a very global audience from Canada to France. People from the Netherlands, and I would like to share one final thing, that if you want to stay tuned for updates about commerce, about other relevant digital topics, please follow DEPT on the social media. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I can also share some of the slides we shared today. Also, most or all e-commerce day content will be shared with you via the email with which you registered today. So thank you so much for today. This is about it for stage 3. Have a nice one. Bye-bye.